This video captured the moment that this man, Mark Waugh, was last seen alive. On the evening of October 12th, 2013, after a night of heavy drinking, Mark Waugh headed to his friend's apartment. He was accompanied by a couple, Rahul Gupta and Taylor Gould. The trio had just spent the night celebrating Rahul's upcoming birthday at several bars, and were now entering the elevator at the Blair East apartment complex in Silver Spring. They rode up to Unit 1601. Laughing and stumbling, the three seemed to have a good time together. However, what happened next took a terrifying turn. Just hours after entering room 1601, Mark was found brutally stabbed, lying dead in a pool of his own blood. Meanwhile, Taylor appeared intoxicated and frantic, but claimed she couldn't remember anything. However, Rahul immediately confessed, saying he killed Mark. After catching him and Taylor cheating, police arrested Rahul on the spot, convinced they had their suspect. But the case took a dark turn when Rahul changed his story, stating he had only confessed to protect his girlfriend. What really happened in room 1601? And who was the true killer? Stay tuned as we dive into the twisted case of Mark Waugh. But before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe for more true crime stories. 27-year-old Mark Waugh was a law student at the University of Maryland. Born and raised in Silver Spring, Mark had always been a well-liked and outgoing individual, known for his friendly nature and strong relationships with those around him. Mark had been friends with Rahul Gupta since high school, and the two shared a close bond. On October 12, 2013, Mark went out with Josh, Taylor, and Rahul to celebrate Rahul's early birthday. The group spent the evening drinking heavily at a bar in DuPont Circle, then decided to continue the celebration at Rahul and Taylor's apartment. It was then what began as a fun night out quickly took a dark turn.
My friend is, he's here and I need emergency right now.
Okay, what is going on that you need the police? What is happening?
I don't know.
Okay, we need to know what assistance you need. What is happening with your friend?
Right, he's not breathing, okay? I don't know. Stop. Please.
Off of me. Don't touch me.
At 3:25 a.m., the Montgomery County Police Department received a frantic 911 call from Taylor Gould. She claimed her friend wasn't breathing and urgently needed police. When the dispatcher pressed for details, Taylor admitted that everyone had been drinking but refused to explain what was actually happening. In the background, a grown man could be heard crying. Something was terribly wrong in apartment 1601.
I'm doing wrong, okay? Stop.
What is happening?
I don't know. I just need someone here. There's blood everywhere.
What do you mean there's blood everywhere? What happened?
I don't know.
How do you not know? You see what's going on. We don't. You need to tell us and paint the picture of what's happening right now.
I don't know. I just need someone here. I'm scared. I just want someone here.
The 911 call dragged on, as Taylor's erratic responses revealed nothing beyond her urgent plea for police. First responders rushed to the scene. Inside Rahul and Taylor's small apartment, they found a gruesome scene straight out of a slasher movie. Blood smeared the floor and walls, and the living room was in disarray. Rahul Gupta lay on the floor, his hands and clothes soaked in blood. When paramedics checked on him, they found he was uninjured but heavily intoxicated. Just a few feet away, Mark lay motionless, his body riddled with 11 stab wounds. 5 showed signs of a desperate struggle, while the other 6 were so deep that any one of them could have killed him. Nearby, a bloodied knife rested in a pool of red. Paramedics rushed to help, but it was too late. Mark was already dead. Meanwhile, Taylor sat in the hallway, dazed and visibly intoxicated. When police asked what had happened, she could only say she didn't know. However, her boyfriend had a different story to tell. In his intoxicated state, he suddenly blurted out a chilling confession. They were cheating. My girlfriend was cheating on me. My buddy and my girlfriend were cheating. I walked in on my buddy and my girlfriend cheating. I killed my buddy. His sudden confession suggested a jealous rage had driven him to murder. Both Rahul and Taylor were arrested and taken to the police station. But even with Rahul's confession, this case was far from over. On the way to the station, Rahul suddenly changed his narrative. He now claimed he had been too drunk and high to know what he was saying. His confession, he insisted, was false, and he had only said it to protect Taylor. To piece together what led to the incident, Rahul and Taylor were quickly placed in separate interrogation rooms.
You're remembering like something with video games, and then, the next thing you know, Rahul is telling you to call the police or whatever. But there's a big gap of time in between there where something happened. Okay, and I believe that you know what happened, and that's something that you need to tell me about. Okay.
Yeah, but we were drinking. I don't remember. All I remember is Rahul telling me to call 911.
Right. Like, why would Rahul get so upset that he would do something to Mark?
I don't think he would. That's ridiculous. That's crazy.
From the 911 call to the interrogation room, Taylor repeated the same answer she had blacked out from drinking and had no memory of what happened. Not until Rahul shouted at her to call 911. She also refused the possibility that Rahul would kill Mark. In another room, Rahul was asked the same questions, and he also denied harming his friend and said he didn't know what happened.
I know for a fact that I did not stab Mark.
Okay.
I mean, so if I did that, I would know.
Actually, saying you don't know what happened.
I don't know what happened between Tay and Mark to cause him to be on the side of the bed when I found him like that, but I know for a fact that I did not do that. Well, I don't know what happened between Tay and Mark, but I do know for a fact that I was doing my own thing, and then when I was alerted to the situation, I went to Mark. I don't know what happened between Tay and Mark, except for the fact that she was definitely hesitating a little bit when I yelled at her to call the police or paramedics or whatever it was. So that's what I remember.
From the start of the interrogation, the young couple insisted they had no idea what happened. Both gave vague and confused answers. Taylor claimed she was too drunk to remember, while Rahul said he was occupied elsewhere during the violent struggle and only became aware of the situation when he heard Taylor's scream. He also noted that when he urged Taylor to call 911, she appeared scared and hesitant. Outside the interrogation room, investigators worked quickly, collecting statements from potential witnesses and gathering forensic evidence from room 1601. At first glance, all the evidence seemed to point back to Taylor. From 2 a.m. when she was seen in the elevator to 5 a.m. when she was at the police interview. Taylor had changed her outfits 3 times, and each outfit had Mark's blood on it. When the detective pressed her for that detail, she struggled to give a clear answer. Despite admitting she must have interacted with Mark's body since she had blood on her, she insisted she had no memory of when or how it happened. She also firmly denied the possibility that she could have killed Mark while intoxicated.
There is no remote possibility that you did this to Mark and you don't remember?
I can't imagine hurting someone like that.
However, Taylor's outfit changes weren't the only suspicious detail investigators noticed. They also found strands of her hair in Mark's hand, on his shirt, and stuck to the blood-smeared wall near his body. Even more incriminating, her hair was also discovered, stuck on the knife lying beside him. But the most baffling find? A contact lens belonging to Taylor, stuck to the leather label, on the back pocket of Mark's jeans. This damning evidence only made the murder case more complex and confusing, especially when considering Rahul's initial confession, which he later recanted, and the fact that his clothes were covered in far more of Mark's blood than all of Taylor's outfits combined. However, a crucial lead that helped authorities better understand the trio's dynamics was a series of strange texts Mark sent around 2 a.m. At 2:01 a.m., he wrote, "My night is becoming historically awkward. At 2:19 a.m., his frustration escalated. "I'm about to gnaw my hand off, so I can leave in an ambulance." Then, at 2:55 a.m., his final message was short but chilling. "Awake. I need help." These cryptic texts hinted at rising tension in room 1601, just before everything took a deadly turn. With the evidence in hand, investigators confronted Taylor and Rahul, but their questioning led to nowhere. That's when Josh entered the picture. He was the one left early after the group's night of drinking at DuPont Circle. When asked about his decision of leaving, Josh revealed that he had noticed strange behavior between Taylor and Rahul that night. According to Josh, Taylor had been flirting with both him and Mark, making the two men suspect she was being unfaithful. They eventually brought it up to Rahul, but his reaction was unexpected. Instead of confronting Taylor, Rahul told them she had actually complained about them, claiming that Josh and Mark were making her uncomfortable. Josh told investigators that this uncomfortable exchange made things tense, and that's why he decided to leave the party alone that night. At the end of his interview with police, Josh emphasized that he didn't trust Taylor because of her behavior earlier that night. After hearing Josh's statement, police saw a stronger connection to Rahul's initial confession about killing Mark. If there really was something going on between Taylor and Mark, the chances of Rahul acting out in a fit of rage were high. With this in mind, investigators pressed Rahul further about Taylor's loyalty, hoping to finally uncover the truth.
Him and Tay just made it seem like they had a thing going on. And as soon as I found that out, I just started doing my own thing. And I sort of just looked the other way. I sat down and started doing my own thing. And at some point, Mark sustained the injury.
Did you ask her what happened? Like,
No,
any normal person would be like, what happened?
Probably should have done that, yeah. So, again, I don't know. I didn't do it.
If you didn't stab him, then who did? Okay.
Rahul explained that when the three of them returned to the apartment, it became clear to him through their body language that they had a connection, though he didn't see any physical evidence like kissing or touching. As soon as he discovered this, he said he distanced himself, sitting down and doing his own thing. Then at some point, Mark sustained his injuries. While he claimed he had no knowledge of what had happened between Taylor and Mark, Rahul didn't hesitate to say that it was Taylor who stabbed Mark. The detective then turned to Taylor, explaining that Rahul witnessed she screamed and then Mark ended up on the ground, bleeding.
I mean, what reason would you have to hurt Mark? You didn't wake up to, like, him trying to...
I don't remember anything. I don't know. I'm telling you the truth.
I can't myself imagine doing that.
Right.
So I'm just confused because, like, I'm not trying to put the blame on the wrong person.
In response to Rahul's claim, Taylor was shocked and continued to insist that she couldn't remember anything from the night. She denied having any intention to harm Mark, but also made it clear that she wasn't trying to shift the blame onto Rahul, as she genuinely had no recollection of what had happened. After hours of interrogation, layers of uncertainty still obscured the full truth of Mark's murder. Desperate for answers, investigators took a bold move. They placed both suspects in the same room and observed their interaction. However, to the police's frustration, neither of them provided any details to bridge the gap in the timeline of the murder. Taylor insisted she only remembered arguing with Rahul about Josh before he yelled at her to call 911. Rahul, on the other hand, said he was in shock and only recalled Taylor shouting for help. Their conversation became more frantic. Taylor panicked, kept saying she had no idea what happened, while Rahul demanded a lawyer and told Taylor to inform the officers he wanted out. Eventually, an investigator stepped in, reminding Taylor that lawyers weren't kept at the police station and their conversation ended. Both refused to admit to any wrongdoing or accidentally revealed anything incriminating. The couple's statements were uncertain and disjointed. But though it didn't shed any more light to the full story, to the police, it was clear that one of them wasn't telling the truth. From the investigators' perspective, while they did find Taylor, Gould's blonde hairs clutched in Mark's hand and on the knife, there was no direct evidence linking her to the actual killing. Taylor was found outside the apartment, drunk and disoriented. She never confessed or showed any signs of a struggle. She had no defensive wounds, no blood on her hands. More importantly, she consistently claimed to have no memory of the incident, a statement that remained unchanged throughout the investigation. In contrast to Taylor, Rahul's story kept changing. He initially confessed to the murder but later took it back. During his interviews, Rahul repeatedly hinted that something had gone wrong between Taylor and Mark, suggesting it may have led to a fight and ultimately Mark's death. However, when pressed for more details, he claimed he was doing something else at the time of the murder, thus had no idea what happened, even though he was in the same apartment as them. This contradiction raised a red flag for investigators. There was also forensic evidence that led back to Rahul. Mark suffered 6 stab wounds and 5 cutting injuries, consistent with a prolonged, rage-fueled attack. Based on Josh's interview, police suspected that Rahul may have been jealous of Mark. Engraved and under the influence of alcohol and marijuana, Rahul seemed more likely to have committed the murder than Taylor. Although Rahul claimed there was a fight between Taylor and Mark, detectives found no clear evidence of any tension between them before or during the night of the murder. Another crucial point to note was that Rahul Gupta's clothes and hands were covered in blood, strongly suggesting he had been in direct contact with Mark, either during or shortly after the attack. In the end, with Rahul's confession, the physical evidence found at the crime scene, the subsequent interrogation, and the lack of forced entry, ruling out the possibility of an intruder, police concluded that Rahul Gupta murdered Mark Waugh in a fit of drunken jealousy. On October 15, 2013, the police charged Rahul Gupta with first-degree murder in the death of Mark Waugh. The timeline of Mark's murder is simple. On October 12, 2013, Rahul, Mark, Josh, and Taylor spent the evening drinking at various bars in Washington, D.C. Afterward, Josh left, while the remaining 3 returned to Taylor and Rahul's apartment in Silver Spring, Maryland, heavily intoxicated. Tensions began to rise between Rahul and Mark, allegedly due to suspicions of infidelity involving Taylor. This tension eventually escalated into a violent confrontation between the 2 men. In the early hours of October 13, 2013, Rahul grabbed a knife and stabbed Mark multiple times. Mark succumbed to his injuries in the apartment. During this time, Taylor was blackout, drunk to be fully aware of the situation, and this was evident during her interrogation. Shortly after the attack, Rahul confessed to the crime when police arrived at the scene, claiming he killed his friend after discovering the affair. However, for this version of events to be confirmed as the truth, a lengthy court process awaited both Rahul and Taylor, during which their roles in the murder would be laid bare and thoroughly examined. The trial began with Rahul Gupta's defense team insisting on his innocence. They argued that Taylor Gould was the one who killed Mark Waugh that evening and acted alone. The defense claimed that Taylor's motive was to silence Mark after he made advances toward her. The defense also pointed out that Rahul's initial confession should be dismissed as unreliable, arguing that it was the result of his intoxication and adrenaline after trying to save his friend's life. They then focused on the strange 911 call, made less than 2 hours after the trio arrived at the apartment. They highlighted that during the call, Rahul could be heard expressing concern for Mark's condition, while Taylor was described as completely uncooperative and distant. The defense also highlighted the fact that Taylor changed her clothes 3 times before being questioned. They further presented a photo of Taylor's right hand, which showed a small injury on her pinky finger knuckle. The defense argued that this injury was the result of Taylor's hand slipping down the knife's handle during the stabbing. Finally, they directed the jury's attention to the physical evidence found at the crime scene. This included Taylor's hair found in Mark's hand, on his shirt, wrapped around the knife, and stuck to the blood on the wall next to Mark's body. They concluded that the injury was the result of Taylor and Mark's struggle. In contrast, the prosecution's case painted a different picture. They argued that Rahul was a jealous, angry boyfriend who, fueled by drunken rage, attacked Mark after suspecting an affair between him and Taylor. The prosecution argued that the physical evidence against Taylor couldn't be trusted. Taylor lived in the apartment, therefore. Her DNA found at the crime scene was understandable. The prosecution dismissed the bruise on Taylor's knuckle, stating that one of the 6 fatal stab wounds had gone 7 inches deep and even chipped a bone. It was far beyond Taylor's strength. They believed she wasn't able to inflict the injury. One of the key moments in court came when the prosecution played a recorded phone call between Rahul and his father, during which they believed Rahul made an unintentional confession.
Where are you? I'm in jail. What happened? Mark and I got into a fight, and he tried to get a knife, and then I grabbed the knife. Who did you get into a fight with? Mark.
In the call, Rahul admitted to getting in a fight with Mark, which the prosecutor believed led to fatal stabbing. In their final argument, the prosecution pointed out that Taylor, due to her heavy intoxication, admitted she could have been the one to kill Mark, though she couldn't be sure. In contrast, Rahul was certain he didn't commit the murder, however. He couldn't recall exactly what had happened. Throughout the trial, witnesses flooded the court, testifying to Rahul Gupta's history of rage, jealousy, and abusive behavior. These accounts painted a picture of a man struggling with deep, unresolved emotional issues. Rahul had been friends with Mark Waugh since high school, but by the time of Mark's murder, their relationship had soured. Rahul had grown increasingly controlling and jealous of Mark's closeness with his girlfriend, Taylor Gould. After hearing both sides' presentations, the jury deliberated for 1 day before returning with their verdict. Ultimately, the judge sentenced Rahul Gupta to life in prison, without the possibility of parole. The decision was seen as a measure of justice for Mark Waugh's tragic and senseless death. In the judge's statement, he expressed that neither he nor the jury believed Rahul's version of events. The judge remarked, "He showed no recognition of his own culpability, no personal accountability. He did not apologize to the family members. He did not accept responsibility for what he had done. This lack of remorse and failure to take responsibility were significant factors in determining his sentence." In the years following his sentencing, Rahul Gupta's latest appeal was denied on March 24, 2017, solidifying the life sentence handed down by the court. Justice was finally served, but the loss of Mark Waugh was not easy to forget. His sudden death left a pain that his loved ones would carry with them forever.
Mark was a gift from God, and his death is a tragedy that we must carry for the rest of our lives.
That brings us to the end of today's episode. What are your thoughts on this twisted case? Do you think Rahul Gupta is ultimately the perpetrator? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more true crime stories. Until next time, stay safe.